Final score from Scott Field: Mississippi State 56, East Tennessee State 7. Steve, I guess the obvious storylines are State wins, nobody gets hurt that we know of, Bulldogs take care of business, and now on to the Egg Bowl. But we can fill in a lot of gaps in between there. So what jumps out to you today about Mississippi State's dominating victory?
Well, I think the first thing, Emmanuel Forbes setting the SEC and believed to be now the FBS record for career pick sixes, and one of the best to ever wear the uniform at that position. And we've had some really good corners over the years, but nobody with maybe the accomplishments of Emmanuel Forbes, and that includes Jonathan Banks, who was a Thorpe Award winner. I mean, and I don't know where Forbes will end up on the national watch list, but he was completely disrespected by the SEC media at the beginning of the year. And he's answered that call, and it was just a matter of him staying on his feet because the convoy was set up, and I thought the Bulldogs did a great job that even Johnny Majors would be proud of from the Oski Wow days, going defense to offense. But that was a big moment today. But, State comes out, plays with pace, plays fast, gets up early, and then you're able to play a lot of players in the second half to save some wear and tear on a very short work week.
Of course, you start off with the interception, the pick six there. I was joking with Forbes about it, and he said, the ball's kicked off the foot. He just stayed with the ball there, kind of fluky. But fluke can often be just a result of being prepared, being ready, and he just has a knack for being ready. Even the tackle that a man made on him, he spins off it, and it points him in the exact right direction to go for the touchdown. When you're a good player like that, good things just happen.
Yeah, it's kind of a semi-charmed life for Emmanuel Forbes, and there were so many people that worried about his size. I mean, because even now he's kind of thinly framed, but he has been one of the more physical corners at Mississippi State. He does a great job in run support. He is not a one-trick pony. He is a more complete player, and probably has played his last game on this field behind us.
And he made it a good one there. And, of course, he is Mississippi State's nominee for the Connerly Trophy as well. And hopefully not too many voting has already taken place, so he gets a chance and a fair consideration because he could have another big game this coming week. All right, you mentioned the tempo and the offense. Now, obviously, it's easier to run tempo offense when you're an SEC team walking up against a Southern Conference school. You don't have to do the in-depth reading and recognition. That said, Will Rogers, by picking up the pace of the offense at one point, was 18 of 20 passing, finished the game averaging double digits for his completions, adds 4 touchdowns to his career total, just has the kind of day that you should have against this sort of team. All right, we can complain a little bit about maybe the 4th and 1 decision to throw instead of run, but that's details. It's the way they came out and just, as Coach Mike Leach said, took care of their own business.
They did, and this was such an important game too, David, because of the way the traffic is clearing around Mississippi State in the SEC bowl pecking order. Vanderbilt beats Florida today, and of course, Georgia's beating Kentucky. We entered the weekend with 4 6-4 teams. Now Mississippi State is 7-4, and there's a good chance they'll be the only 7-4 team in the SEC after today's games are over. And so you're thinking, we're going to get a Tennessee bowl game. Now it seems like State is pretty certain to get a Florida bowl game, and if you win the Egg Bowl, there's a good chance you get the Florida bowl game outside of the New Year's Six.
In fact, Citrus Bowl. Yeah, some things have to happen, but as long as you're in that playing position at the end of the year, you control your own fate in that regard.
Yeah, that's really it. State controls its own destiny at this point. You beat Ole Miss in the battle for the Golden Egg on Thursday. You end up with the same record as them, 8-4. And they're on the 2 or 3 game losing streak. I mean, so obviously Mississippi State fans Dave, we've talked about this before. When you win the Egg Bowl, you sell bowl tickets. When you don't win the Egg Bowl, you don't sell bowl tickets. And so, not to mention, there's all this side circus stuff going on with Lane Kiffin up there. You don't know, is he going to be there? Is he not going to be there? Mississippi State, a solid bowl team. You win the Golden Egg, you're going to have some motivated ticket buyers wearing maroon.
Well, speaking of what's going on up there, I wonder what the Generational X version of a pine box is. I have to think about that regard. But, regardless what happens there. Other takeaways from this game today. Obviously, the offensive execution was good. Got a lot of receivers, a lot of catches. Jokovius Marks looked good. Dylan Johnson, probably not 100% still, and holding him out most of the way. Probably the wise choice, particularly on a very cold day. Otherwise, your takeaways on the offense.
Well, I was glad to see J.J. Jernigan get in the end zone. I was glad to see Chance Levertich, and let's talk about that a little bit. A lot of our fans were so, fired up about Sawyer Robertson, and I had a staff member tell me earlier this week that chances are that, Sawyer would take over for Will once Will gave it up. But it's senior day, so it makes sense that you let Levertich get a few shots, and he did, and Sawyer came in and didn't look good, and unfortunately it didn't matter. But, Dave, we've talked about this through fall camp. Sawyer is going to be a great quarterback in time. This is just not that time. And I'm sure he was amped up a little bit. It's a cold day. And But people don't need to give up on that kid. I mean, I don't just say that because we share a last name. He's ultra talented. It's just not his time. This is Will Rogers' time, and Will has been decidedly ahead of every quarterback on the roster this year, and it shows. So, again, to get some of those guys like Chance Levertich and J.J. Jernigan a chance to get their name in the box score, and J.J. I thought had a really good game. You know, it's basically as a reserve today. But there are a lot of guys that have contributed to Mississippi State football that are not necessarily fan favorites because they don't make the headlines, but they still make this football program move forward.
And you even get a guy like Marquez Dortch out there for a couple of plays. And this is the first time he's played all season. So he still stays within the redshirt rule. I think guys, Terry Russell, I did not see him out there today. I need to check participation. Deontay Anderson gets out there. They both had 3 games. So they both had a game to play still and keep that redshirt year option. All right, defensively. Maybe not an electric start for them, but eventually they just kind of took control and just did their job without a fuss. And they started substituting really early.
They did. And the thing that Zach Arnett told us, too, that's so interesting, and maybe we didn't know it until we saw it in person, they run a lot of the same offensive concepts that Ole Miss does. A lot of the quarterback draw stuff. They run some zone read stuff. So it's kind of a good dress rehearsal of sorts for the Golden Egg. And of course, what Arkansas runs is nowhere close to what Mississippi State runs. But State should be able to have some carryover in their calls and checks this week. And also, too, they can see how teams want to attack them. And so now the flip side is Ole Miss can see how we defense them. But I think once you put the Bandits in, State went a lot more vanilla. So at this point, State has an advantage of playing at home today, getting the game over. Ole Miss isn't even in warm-ups yet, and they're going to play a game in sub-20-degree weather tonight and probably won't get home till after midnight. By that time, Will Rogers and them would have already watched film of Ole Miss, watched their game tonight, and we'll be ready to go tomorrow. So you almost pick up a full day of preparation over Ole Miss because of how the schedule worked out.
And you and I can vouch for the fact that, 2015, State plays the late game at Arkansas, brutally cold conditions, comes back, and you can't avoid some of the wear and tear. And that was a Dak Prescott team, and they were not nearly 100% by Thursday ready to play for that game.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And in a game like this, where the teams really are, even despite what the early records may have shown, these two teams are very, very similar when it comes to talent level. State hadn't had the hype, I guess, maybe that Ole Miss has had. But, there's a good chance these two teams are going to end up with the same record, which will be an interesting talking point for those that have left the Mississippi State football program dead and buried behind Ole Miss. And so, Arkansas would need, of course, to handle their business. But it's senior day up there. They're 5-5. They need a win. This is their last home game of the year. So Ole Miss will get Arkansas's best shot. But the reality of it is, you never know what's going to happen in Battle for the Golden Egg. I mean, who knew that Nick Fitzgerald go up there and set a school record for rushing? I mean, it's one of those things you never know. And just when you think you've got it figured out, something changes.
So you notice we're talking more about Thursday night's game than we are this one. Well, that's just the nature of these late season contests. And by the way, let me throw in for all complaining about the attendance, the time, the 11 o'clock starting time, as Steve has indicated, is good preparation, bounce back. Because right now the coaches are in the offices as we record this, going through tape. They're having a quick early supper and getting ready. And they've already, and Will Rogers said too, he already started watching Ole Miss film this past week. That's the luxury of playing a game like this. Also, and we'll have to throw this in, originally this was going to be an open date when Mississippi State set the schedule years ago, and powers above this level said, no, if your opponent has to play next Thursday, you've got to play a game too. So give credit to Mississippi State for finding a very winnable game to slip in here. Was it ideal for fans? No. But it gives those same fans a chance to watch a better prepared team in the game that matters most to the fans.
Absolutely, David. And that's the reality of this situation here is many of these decisions are made well in advance. And the State could have chosen to play this game tonight and really kind of negated much of the advantage of the schedule, the way things kind of worked out. But, it is what it is. And I had a staffer tell me, and I won't mention the name, they really only spent one day on East Tennessee State. They began their preparation for Ole Miss on Tuesday. And so while Ole Miss has had to focus their primary energies on Arkansas, Mississippi State's had some advanced scouting and some advanced preparation. So perhaps that makes a difference. And you begin to look at, State should be the better prepared team come Thursday. Now, what that means remains to be seen.
And let's compliment the fans who did come today, not just because they showed up, period. They stayed. And when the third, fourth quarter break there and the Sweet Dreams got going, and by the way, that should certainly replace a lot of things. I know you had a great point. You had to endure Sweet Caroline, the whole thing, and only got 10 seconds of some good Motley and Van Halen in there too. parenthetical, all that stuff. But the people who came and stayed, they made themselves known. The cowbells were loud all game. This shows that this is a fan base that will support this team. You give them the motivation, and sometimes the motivation is just play the game. These are the fans who turned out. Those are the people that can be counted on, and they want a shot at the best bowl possible too.
Absolutely, and we just need to add to that number. I mean, you're right that the fans that were here were into the ball game, and that's why you come to the ball game. Now, State didn't need a lot of help from the crowd to create a home field advantage, and the sad part of it is senior day, and so you have a real sparse crowd, so you don't have that huge. And there are a lot of people I know that would love to have been here to send these seniors off, but the reality of it is there's a lot going on around the state. We're not acclimated yet to the cold weather, so having to come out here and sit on these aluminum bleachers is not exactly the most fun activity, but State wins. And now it's on to the next. It's as simple as that. We're on to the next, and as you probably the biggest point you made, David, State appears to have gotten out of the game 100% healthy.
So, get your minds right, Bulldogs, this week. We understand we'll be talking to Coach Leach, not a regular Monday press conference, but after practice. We don't know what time that practice is. School is in session Monday and Tuesday, so students will still be around, but we'll figure out what that's going on, and we'll get you reports all during the short practice week. And then it's time on to Oxford. And for all you who didn't make it to the game today, I hope you all slaughtered a lot of deer out in the woods this morning. And other than that, let's go on to the Egg Bowl, Steve.
Yeah, let's go on to the Egg Bowl. I think let's go on to the house and maybe put on some hot chocolate or maybe draw a bath or something. I'm just an old boy from South Mississippi, and I wouldn't necessarily build for that, which is why I didn't deer hunt. But the reality of it is we got one game left, and it's the game that matters most to these fans, and we've lost the last two. And this has been something that has been on the horizon all year long, the fear of losing 3 in a row after we'd begun to kind of make some headway and kind of evening the series up again, and all of a sudden you begin to think you lose 3 in a row. So the fear of losing 3 in a row has kind of fueled the angst around this program in many respects. But you end the year 8-4, which was the record most people expected, and you get the egg back and end up in a Florida bowl game. You have to consider 2022 a success.
Well, we'll be finding out this coming Thursday, as well as the bowl assignment to follow on December 4th. We'll have a lot to talk about, and this fella, South Mississippi boy, I'm probably making a call to Domino's, taking home a Pacific veggie for Kathy and a double pepperoni thin crust for myself. That's a great way to warm up while we watch football tonight. But all of you, 56-7, Bulldogs win, now 7th victory, and start to get ready for the battle for the Golden Egg this week. For our whole team, on Gene's page here, Mike Nemeth, Paul Jones, Robbie Falk, and our temporary cameraman here is doing a great job there. Also our photographer of the site as well, Steve Robertson, and myself, David Murray.